gaps where they see grind. See flow where they see time. What you call work, I call misaligned. Because effort without structure declines. Not chanced, every move is advanced. We don't wait for the wave, we construct the deep man. Build, then expand, turn the plan into land where the systems run deep and the structure will stand. I don't chase what I see, I position and lead. When the framework is right, everything starts to feed. Design, not chance, now you starting to see. It was never about work, it was about strategy. Let's be clear, there's a cost to delay. Every day you repeat is a price that you pay. Not in theory, not some distant way, but an income you never positioned to stay. You've been close, but not aligned. You've got skill, but it's not designed, so the output stays capped by time, and the growth never breaks that line. That's expensive, not loud, but it accumulates. Every missed move, every step you hesitate, because what you don't know controls your rate, and what you don't build you can't automate. I don't wait till it makes sense later. I step early, become the creator of a system that pays me greater, while reducing the weight I carry. What's growth? If it collapses at scale, what's income? If it's tied to your availability, what's effort? If it never compounds, we don't add more, we redesign. Shift is subtle, but it's everything. Less motion, more engineering. Less chasing, more positioning. Less guessing, more structure, and now money flows where the system directs, not where your energy constantly reflects. You move once, and the outcome connects to a chain that continues to self-correct. That's leverage. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Design, not chance. Every move is advanced. Now the table is clear, and you're taking your stance. Build, then expand. Now you fully understand. It was never too far, it was never unmanned. I don't chase what I see, I position and lead. Now the structure is set and the system will feed. Design, not chance. This is where it begins. From this point moving forward, you don't play, you win.
Another late night spreadsheet glow, head full of forecasts, eyes running slow. I've been trading my time like it can't run out, quietly winning, quietly in doubt. I've checked every box that they said to check. Still there's this question I can't erase. Something has to shift, more than just the numbers on the screen. I've been climbing ladders that don't lead where I used to dream. I don't need a break, I need a better way to live. I'm not giving up, I'm staying in. But something has to shift. I know the language of targets and charts. Can't hit every metric and still lose my heart. The world's moving fast, I feel it in waves. Maybe real progress means turning the page. What if the future is ours to redraw? Not just a script we inherit by law. Something has to shift, more than just the numbers on the screen. I've been climbing ladders that don't lead to where I used to dream. I don't need a break, I need a better way to live. I'm not stepping back, leaning in, but something has to shift. Changes in chaos, it's choosing a truer line, saying this matters with how we spend our time. If I want a different world, it has to start in me, in every quiet choice, in how I lead, how I speak. Something has to shift, more than just the numbers on the screen. We've been climbing ladders, let's rebuild what they really mean. We don't need escape, we need a deeper way to give. We're not giving up, we're standing here, and something's gonna shift. And something's gonna shift. Another late night spreadsheet glow, head full of forecasts, eyes running slow. I've been trading my time like it can't run out, quietly winning, quietly in doubt. I've checked every box that they said to check. Still there's this question I can't erase. Something has to shift, more than just the numbers on the screen. I've been climbing ladders that don't lead where I used to dream. I don't need a break, I need a better way to live. I'm not giving up, I'm staying in, but something has to shift. I know the language of targets and charts, can hit every metric and still lose my heart. The world's moving fast, I feel it in waves. Maybe real progress means turning the page. What if the future is ours to redraw? Not just a script we inherit by law. Something has to shift, more than just the numbers on the screen. I've been climbing ladders that don't lead to where I used to dream. I don't need a break, I need a better way to live. I'm not stepping back, I'm leaning in, but something has to shift. Changes in chaos, it's choosing a truer line, saying this matters with how we spend our time. If I want a different world, it has to start in me, in every quiet choice, in how I lead, how I speak. Something has to shift, more than just the numbers on the screen. We've been climbing ladders, let's rebuild what they really mean. We don't need escape, we need a deeper way to give. We're not giving up, we're standing here, and something's gonna shift. Something's gonna shift.
Level up, it's your season. Move with clarity on reason. From reaction into vision. From effort into precision. Step forward, claim your range. This the shift, this the change. You're not here by accident. You're here to rearrange. You've been working without structure, high for low return. Every day you chase momentum, but the leverage never turns. Meetings, messages, deadlines, always moving, never scaling. Strong ambition in your spirit, but the system keeps on failing. You don't lack the capability, you lack intentional design. When direction meets discipline, that's when hours multiply. Success is not acceleration without architectural thought. Build a model, map the flow, that's where real control is taught. It's your season, move with clarity on reason. From reaction into vision, from effort into precision. Step forward, claim your range. This the shift, this the change. You're not here by accident. You're here to rearrange. Professionals tired of ceilings, business owners tired of drift. You don't need more motivation, you need systems that uplift. Write it once and make it scalable. Design roles that interlock, reduce friction in the process, turn confusion into clockwork. This is measured transformation, not emotional display. Quiet power, clear direction, intentional every day. Your time is not for survival, it's for building what remains. When structure meets intelligence, that's when progress sustains. Level up, it's your season. Operate with deeper reason. From motion into mastery. From pressure into strategy. Step forward, claim your range. This the shift, this the change. You're not here by accident. You're here to rearrange.
Okay, how is everyone doing? How is everyone doing? I welcome every one of us to tonight's session. How are you doing? And where are you joining from? Tonight is going to be amazing. Where are you joining from? Let's know in the chats where you are joining from. Today, it's another day with the leverage circle. All right? It's another day with the leverage circle. So where are you joining from? I could see the chat is already busy. The song, yes, it's a nice song. I love the lyrics as well. Uh, how is everyone? I am doing good. Thank you, Amarachuku. I am doing good. I am doing good. Joining from FCT. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so I welcome every one of us to today, and we are going to dive into it very soon. If you know anyone that is supposed to be here but they are not here, shoot them a message. Let them know that we have already started. Let them know that we have already started. And tonight we'll be considering, something very, very important. I titled it Built by One, Powered by Many. Built by One, Powered by Many. And we'll be considering that the architecture of the modern solo business. So I want you, wherever you are, stay very, very attentive. These are very power-packed sessions that is going to be absolutely beneficial to you as an individual. All right, so make sure you have, your writing notes. Make sure you pay attention, because it is information that leads to transformation. What you are informed about has a way of transforming your mind. Our mind always needs some levels of enlightenment, some depths of enlightenment. And it is the knowledge that we are able to absorb that has that capacity to be able to bring us to that place of enlightenment. So whenever you find yourself in an environment where you are opportuned to have knowledge, it is a time to position yourself correctly to be able to use what you hear to do certain things that will be amazing. Okay? Many great people that we see in life, they do not arrive to their destination by accident. No, they did not. They arrive into their destination based on the knowledge that they have been able to acquire. And as a result of that knowledge, they were able to implement the things that they have had. And that implementation was what sets them apart, from every other person. So when we come for the leverage circle, it is a time to receive some power packed information that is going to help you to stay ahead. And I guarantee you, if you begin to act on the things that you hear, you would begin to work on certain levels of advantage that is not ordinary. Okay, you begin to work on those levels of advantage. And that is what is going to set you apart, from other people. All right. So tonight we'll be considering something very important, and it is titled Built by One, Powered by Many, the Architecture of Modern Solo Business. All right, so I can see Faith joining from Port Harcourt. I can see at LMCI joining from Ogun State. You are welcome. I can see Nnadi Ginikachi joining from Owerri. You are also welcome. And Chike Amara joining from Abuja. You are also welcome. So I welcome every one of you. I welcome every one of you. And I can see Ndefreke also joining from Port Harcourt. Welcome, 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 Edmond. We have a lot of people joining from Port Harcourt. What's happening there? Okay, I see Lena joining from Abuja. Edmond is joining from Port Harcourt. That's very good. That's very good. That's very good. Amazing, amazing. So I welcome every one of us. I welcome every one of us. Good evening, Lena. Good evening. I welcome you. And I believe from our previous sessions, we have been implementing some of the things that we are talking about. Last time we talked about the income architecture. And the previous time we also talked about the invisible majority. So we have been having very, very mind-blowing conversations. And I want us to go beyond just having these conversations to the point of actually implementing the things that we hear. Okay, so this evening we'll be considering Built by One, Powered by Many, the Architecture of Modern Solo Business. And why did I want to talk to us about this? For a couple of reasons. And these are things that I believe we are very much aware of. Okay, I believe we are very much aware of this, what is currently happening in the world. And I have come to realize that a lot of times when certain things start happening, they do not just present themselves like I'm already happening. All right. And what that does is many times, even if it is already happening, people are not paying attention because they are not getting the right dimension of awareness about what is happening. Just imagine you've been used to doing things a certain way for the last 15, 20 years of your life. Okay. It's very difficult to start adjusting to something new. It's very, very difficult. So there is that tendency to want to stay with that particular thing that you have known how to do in time past. And that's why this level of awareness is something that is very, very important, because at the AI Leverage Academy, we also want to be able to inform people. We want to create that depth of awareness of what is currently happening in the world and how people can be able to take advantage of that. So this night, I'm going to start by saying something. And that thing is, Every one of us here, you are living in the most powerful economic transition of your lifetime. I want you to mark that statement. You are living what? In the most powerful economic transition of your lifetime. Okay? And this is not just a statement, this is a reality. This is a reality. And I believe you know this, but sometimes you may not know the depths of what is actually happening. And someone is going to ask me, how do I actually know that? I know that because I have been in the global space and I have worked in different corporate organizations, and I know the levels of transitions that I see, and I know how fast it is happening. I know how fast it is happening. I've lived in the US for 9 years. I've worked in the US for 7 years. Now, out of the 7 years of working in different corporate environments within the US, I have seen the depth of transition that is happening. That what is happening in the last 5 to 6 months has never even happened in the last 6 years. And these are not just casual statements that I'm making. These are realities that I see. And that's why I am passionate about what I'm doing, creating this awareness to people, because I come to realize that there is a lot of hype around the things that is happening, and those hype end up being a level of distraction to people. It ends up being a level of distraction that they are not paying attention carefully. And what the hype does is that it begins to make people to focus on, the small fractions of what they should focus on. They're not focusing on the big picture. They're not focusing on the big picture. If you want to be able to go far in anything you're doing, you have to be this individual that pay attention to trends and historical patterns. Okay? Because there are moments in economic history when the rules that governs the previous century, it stopped applying. There are moments in economic history when the rules that governs the previous century, they stop applying. And do you know the sad reality about those moments? Nobody announces it. When we are going into transitions, these things just naturally happen based on how the world is actually moving. And nobody announces it. It just happens. And the impact of that is that, the businesses that does not recognize those moments early enough, the individuals that do not recognize those moments early enough, they get to bankrupt themselves. And the reality is that we are standing in one of those moments now. So I want to talk to us, and I want to let us know that beyond the noise of everything that you hear about, artificial intelligence and all, begin to pay attention to the right things. Begin to pay attention to the right things. Begin to cut yourself off from the noise that is going on and begin to pay attention. What should I focus in times like this? What should be the bigger picture for me? What should be the things that I'm beginning to align with in times like this? In times like this, when I have access to speed, in times like this, when I have access to, depth of achieving things that is almost impossible to achieve in time past, in times when it looks as if there is a lot of tools, there is a lot of assets, there is a lot of systems and structures that puts you ahead, that makes you to have an advantage, what should I begin to pay attention to? That is how those that are the architects We talked about the architects last time. That is how they begin to think. Now, if somebody is telling you that this is a time that you don't need to think, you just need to go blindly, put certain things in, certain AI tools, garbage in, garbage out. If somebody is telling you that that is the way forward, you would be missing out of something very, very big. Because this is a time to really sit quietly and begin to ask yourself the right questions. And for you to be able to ask yourself the right questions, you need to have an understanding of what is happening from a global standpoint. You need to have an understanding of the depths of what's the transitions that is happening currently. What is the implication in your individual life, in your individual approach? Because the problem a lot of times is not putting in efforts. I have met people, tons of individuals that puts on efforts and efforts every single day of their life, but because they do not pivot to the right level and dimension of leverage, they find out that they are left behind. It is beyond putting in effort. You have to have an understanding of the depth of leverage that you have so that you know how to commit the right level of effort that gives you the result that is expected. We are in a transition period of speed. What do you need to pay attention to that will give you that leverage of speed? Very, very important. And if you're not paying attention to that, you may as well just find yourself doing the old things, doing the things that you have been used to doing, not knowing that we are in an economic history that rules out the patterns, the processes that we have always been engaging in time past. In time past. So whether you're a business owner, whether you're a business owner, whether you are an individual, begin to pay attention to the historical patterns. Begin to pay attention to what this transition actually means for you. Now, there have been a lot of research that are showing certain trends. I don't know, we should know of Stripe. Stripe is more like a payment gateway. Okay, they're more like a payment gateway. Now, they came up with this research that shows the rise of super founders. Okay, and who are these super founders? These super founders are individuals that are being classified as solopreneurs. We are always used to entrepreneurs, but there is also a dimension called solopreneurs. Solopreneurs is more like starting a business that is managed by you as an individual, singularly. So Stripe made a research and they came up with some finding that, solo founded business are now crossing, $1 million in annual revenue at rates that has never been observed in economic history. Now, what that means is businesses that actually just started alone on their own without the help of any person, because they now have systems and structures that they can be able to use, it now helps them to be able to generate revenue without going through the traditional approach of having to hire a lot of people. That's what the research is showing. The US Census Bureau in 2023, they also came up with a research that companies that have 0 employees, they are now generating over $1.7 trillion in revenue. Companies that have what? 0 employees. Now, how does that translate to you as an individual? And that is what I'm talking about. Paying attention, what? Paying attention to the right things. Many a times we pay attention to the noise, But when we begin to pay attention to the right things, we can be able to do what I call a top to bottom approach. If it is happening at this level, how can I bring it to my own level? What does this number mean for me? It is already happening at a global top level. How can that translate into what I'm doing? That is the thinking pattern that sets you apart. That is the thinking pattern that sets you apart. So if organizations that do not have employees, they are generating over $1.7 trillion in revenue, that means something to you. It means that you have no excuse. It means that you can be able to achieve more even by doing less. Because traditionally, the mindset has been, for me to be able to power certain levels of revenue, I need to hire 10 people. I need to hire 11 people. But that is transitioning very, very fast. And people are already succeeding in that. And if people are already succeeding in that, you have to pay attention to that. I stay in the US, and then there is a trend happening. The top 5 companies, or the big 5 companies, they have constantly been laying off people in their thousands. I'm not talking about one. Sometime recently, Amazon laid off up to 10,000 people, because they have come to discover that those things that those individuals are doing are things that they can be able to set certain infrastructures that we do it. Now, it may look like a news that brings about fear, but in the midst of that news, there is an opportunity. Amazon is actually a business. So that means that they have come to discover that we can actually do more without needing the full involvement of humans. When you begin to pay attention from that standpoint, even in the midst of the chaos, even in the midst of the panic, you begin to spot opportunities. Because every transitioning economy presents different levels of opportunity that people are so distracted to pay attention to. People are so distracted to pay attention to. So there is a lot of research. Now, there is this consulting company also in the US called McKinsey. And McKinsey Global Institute in 2024, they published a documentation that talks about the rise of the super individuals, which are more like single operators that are using AI and automation to achieve productivity in ways that are unimaginable. These are the things that you need to start paying attention to. These are the things that you need to start paying attention to. Now, this is how I think. When I see things like this, I begin to ask myself, what does this mean for me as an individual? What does this mean in the way that I think as an individual? Because when you start asking the right questions in times like this, you begin to realize the opportunity that you're not seeing. So one of the things that I want us to know is that the line has been broken. And what do I mean by the line has been broken? In time past, it looks as if to see results, people are directly proportional to results. Positive output and outcome are being tied to individuals' involvement. So if I want to produce 10 units of something, I would most likely need 10 people to do that. And that is why businesses hire. That is the psychology behind why business is higher, because in time past, this is the structure. This is how things work. But now it is different. I'm not talking about in the future. We are living in the present reality. We are living in that present reality. That there's a new approach, there's a new system, there's a new way of doing these things. That one person can be able to have the outcome of 15 people when they combine what with the right system, when they combine with the right structure, when they are able to know the right things to use. And like I always tell us, in time past, these systems and structures that we talk about, there are things that are very, very difficult to assess in time past. But now they are readily available. They are what? They are readily available. And because they are very much readily available, it is something to pay attention to. So people within this community, I want you to start thinking differently, because that is what is going to position you differently. I guarantee you the problem that we are having currently is people not being able to foresee what is already happening, that we are sitting on a gold mine. We're sitting on a gold mine. Just this year alone, if I tell you guys the kind of things that I've been able to achieve quickly, when I mean quickly and promptly, there were things that would have been absolutely impossible if it was 4 years ago. It would have taken me years to achieve those things. It would have taken me years to achieve those things. But when I look around, I see people so distracted and they are not paying attention, to what is happening. Now, I want to bring us to a historical track record. I want to bring us to something historical. And I want us to pay attention to this, because I want to give us a historical frame that is going to change how you see everything that follows. All right? Because I am very much a Christian, and there is one part of the Bible that says, as a man thinketh, so is he. So you cannot become if you don't start thinking in certain ways. You cannot become if you don't start thinking in certain ways. There are certain thoughts that activate certain possibilities within you. Every result that you see outwardly began inwardly. It began from the thought process of that individual. So I want to begin to create a mental picture within you that is going to stir you up to begin to do things that you never imagined that you could do in time past, to begin to see possibilities in the midst of obstacles, to begin to see that you can actually do so much, even if everything around you is saying that you cannot do so much. And I want you to pay attention to this. Now, we have lived in different ages. I'm going to talk about 3 different ages, and I believe we must have heard of those different ages. The first one is the industrial age. Now, it's not the first, but I want to start from there. The industrial age. There was once a time that we had a season that is called the industrial age. And that season is spanned from, I think, in the 1760s to the 1970s. I think around that time frame. Around that right time frame. And what happened during that season? Wealth belonged to those who owned the means of production. That was what happened during that age. You need to own the production. And what do we mean by production? You needed to own factories. You needed to own machineries. You needed to own raw materials. So if you owned these infrastructures or these things, you become among what? You become among the wealthy. You become among the wealthy. And that time, the leverage as of that time was not dependent even on efforts, because we had these wealthy people, they hire other people that does the manual work for them. So the wealthy were those that actually owned the infrastructure. Those were the wealthy people. They had land, they had machineries, they had factories, they had these things. And the barrier then was these things were not easy to get. They were expensive. So it was more like wealth belonged to the rich. That is the kind of that's the kind of season and the times where you hear people saying the rich keep getting richer. It's still applicable, but that was a clear definition. That was a clear definition. The rich keeps getting richer because they owned the land, they owned the machinery. What's the hope of the common man? They owned all these things. And even people that we look at, people like Henry Ford, people like, people like John Rockefeller that was into oil and all of that. These were people that emerged during that age because they had what? They had the advantage. It was more like if you are wealthy, you can become much more wealthier. That was what it looks like. Yes, Samarachi could, like the age of the richest man in Babylon. Very, very correct. Very, very correct. So you need to own those things. And at that time, becoming an industrialist demanded you to have huge amounts of capital. And what did that create? That created a lot of gap between what? That created a lot of gap between the poor and the rich. Because what the industrial age did, it made the world, to come to that awareness that ownership of production was the true source of wealth. But it also made them to realize that ownership is structurally impossible for most of humanity. It was structurally impossible. And then they transitioned from that aspect of, the industrial age, and then we entered into the information age. The information age, I think it started from 1970 to 2020. Maybe I might be wrong with my dates, but within that period of time. And what began to happen during that period, a new kind of wealth builders began to emerge. They didn't require the inventory. They didn't require the machinery. They didn't require the factories. They didn't require all of those things. That's where we started seeing people like Bill Gates. That's where we started seeing people like Mark Zuckerberg at the information age. Because when we got to that information age, it became obvious that people can stay in their computers with their technical ability, with their technical skill, they could be able to do the impossible. They could be able to what? They could be able to do the impossible. And they started, they started acquiring wealth. If you read how Facebook began, you just find out that it was just few people coming together and just playing around. It was more like a side project, and it became something really big. So the information age had a way of accelerating the progress or the efforts that is needed. So what it did is that it reduced the capital barrier intensively, that people with just a laptop and with the right vision, they can be able to do a lot of things. But the information age also came with its own challenge. What was the challenge of the information age? What was the challenge? I want someone to type it in the listing. The information age, wealth was dependent on your cognitive abilities. That's absolutely correct. What you were able to create from your knowledge. Very, very true. Very, very true. So it required your technical expertise. You have to what? You have to be technical. You have to be technical. And that was what created, you go for an interview, you have your, they have to test your technical skills. You have to know, do you know this software? Do you know how to code? Do you know how to write this or that? So building wealth in that time also had its own barrier, technical expertise. Technical expertise. You have to be able to understand the business fully. You have to be able to, make your research. You have to be able to set up a team. You have to be able to, be aware of whatever tools that you're using perfectly. And that in itself, even though it wasn't a bigger barrier, but it was also a barrier. It was what's also a barrier. It was a barrier for business owners. And why was it a barrier for business owners? Because as a business owner, you may not have the technical skill. That means you need to hire somebody that have the technical skill. That is money. You may not understand certain things. And because of that gap, that lack of knowledge, you have to what? You have to be able to get people. So the information age actually broke the wealth monopoly of the industrial age, by creating a new monopoly. And for a very long time, that's why you hear things like, software engineers, they're just fast forward to, let's say maybe 3 years ago, they were almost the highest paid. And that's why it felt like at a particular time, everyone was going into everyone was going into tech. Everyone was going into IT. Because it feels like there is money there. You know how to code? Everybody wants you. But can I shock you? It is not currently that way. In fact, the people that are being impacted the most with what is currently happening, they are actually the software engineers. ChatGPT Codex can write any kind of code for you. Anthropic Cloud can write any kind of code. In fact, it was tested that what a PhD student, mathematics student, if you know PhD and mathematics, they are more like the most difficult parts. PhD is difficult on its own. When you now put mathematics into that PhD, it becomes more difficult. But it was found out that Anthropic Cloud can be able to do a PhD mathematics research that would take somebody up to 4 to 5 years. He was able to do that in less than 4 hours. He was able to do that in less than 4 hours. So you find out that even the people that are software engineers, that it feels like they used to be the big shots, that transition is already happening. In the next year, coming years, it's going to be more obvious. And when things like this are happening, you have to pay attention. It is not for you to be afraid. It is for you to position yourself correctly. That is how I think. Because when you begin to think from a place of, in the midst of any chaos, there are thousands of opportunities that are presenting themselves, you start to realize that there are certain things that you need to pay attention to that will bet certain levels of transformation and give you the advantage that other people do not have. Because can I tell you the reality? 90% of people, they are not thinking in this direction because they are being used to a particular way of doing things, and you can't blame them because that's how the body works. Your body gets comfortable with what you're being used to. So if you're able to pivot yourself differently, you find out that you're already setting up yourself for something that is going to distinguish you from other people. And that's what you need to start paying attention to. So we have talked about the industrial age, the information age. Now we are entering into an age that is called the intelligence age. Not even entering. I think we have already entered into that age. The intelligence age. And this age is very, very different. This age is very, very different. We are no longer in the information age. We have moved past it about 5 years ago. And the kind of reward that comes in the intelligence age is that it rewards people who can be able to design systems. It rewards individuals who can be able to what? Who can be able to design systems. Not factories. Not coding. But individuals who know how to be able to design intelligent systems. Why? Because in the information age, the things that we call systems and structures, they are being accessible by the big organizations because they were also expensive. They were also expensive. But now, the things that we call systems and structures, they are easily accessible. Different AI tools can be used to create systems. And what's the simple way that I define system? A system is more like setting an order or sequence of how things can work. So the people that are going to thrive in times like this are people that begins to think from the standpoint of systems and structure. And one of the mistakes that I see that I don't want people in this community to make is I don't want you to be so obsessed with tools. I want you to be obsessed with how those tools can be able to fit into the systems and the structures that you're setting. Those are two different things. Those are two different things. Tools will keep coming and going. But if you're a system thinker, and what's the example of being a system thinker? I want to start a business. How can I set certain workflows and automation that, repetitive tasks does not need my involvement? There are tools for that. So you ask the question from a system standpoint, and that question is what drives you to go and look for the tools. To go and look for the tools. So you need to start thinking from that place. And why am I so interested in talking about, build once, powered by many? That is what a system does. And what is the advantage of that? The advantage of that is, in time past, the limitations of small businesses have always been capital. But the advantage of being a solopreneur is that you don't even need intense capital to be able to start certain things now. Do you know that there are applications that people are building that if it was 4 years ago, those applications is going to cost them about $30,000 or $40,000. I'm not talking in Naira now. But those applications currently, they are able to build it with maybe just $800. And even the ones that they are building now is even much more better than the previous ones. So there's a lot of opportunities when it has to do with being a solopreneur. And why is it very important? Because small businesses, they have always thought about the limitation of, if I need to start a business, I need to set this, I need to set that, I need to set this. But when you're thinking from a place of systems and structure, you begin to realize that there are already tools that if you commit to just little learning, you can be able to set those systems and structures yourself, especially if you're just getting started. You can be able to set those systems and structure yourself. There are different apps, or there are different things that we use out there that was created by a lean team. And these people are doing revenue of $200 million, $300 million with a very small team. Something that was impossible in time past. And that is why you need to start what? That is why you need to start paying attention. Because there's a lot of wealth that you're leaving on the table if you are not paying attention. There's a lot of wealth that you're leaving on the table. So the most important thing that is needed in the information age is understanding. You don't even need technical expertise again. You don't need massive capital again. The information age required technical expertise. The industrial age required massive capital. But what you need now is just what? Understanding. Understanding the times and the seasons. You don't need even the technical expertise. Technical expertise is going to help you. But if you don't have it, you can just learn the basics and you will still have the same advantage. There are many things I've been able to do that, if it were to be 3 years ago, I wouldn't do it because I wouldn't be able to do it. because that's not my domain. That's not my area. But now my belief system is, if I need to create anything, I know that I can do it because there is so much information out there to leverage on. And it wouldn't take me time to do it. So you need to start being intentional with this information, even how you build, If I have access to unlimited things, why will I still be building like a mediocre? Why will I still be building like I have limitations? It's as if you have been given access to be able to conquer the world, and you're not even conquering, your bedroom, because you're still restricted with the thinking of the past. I saw a video that was shared by one of my friends some time ago. He shared a video of this dog that had been used to staying in the cage. And then he was let loose and the cage was open. But because he was used to staying in the cage, he was still trying to put his head in between the cage because he felt like that's his only escape route. Imagine the level of effort that is going to take that dog to do that while the door is already open. And that is what is happening now, that you have so much access to be able to do the impossible. You have so much access to be able to become the unimaginable. You can even do things that you don't need to put 5% of effort and you get so much results. But because one have been used to the old way of thinking, one have been used to the old narrative, it becomes very much easier to stay in that comfort zone. And that's why I'm challenging every one of you hearing the sound of my voice, begin to know what is happening. If you are here and you have not begun to interact with different LLMs, you are putting yourself at a disadvantage. If you are here and you're still part of those people that are saying, look at this thing, you're using AI too much. That is the reality that you will start seeing in the next 5 to 10 years. In fact, in the next 5 to 10 years, a lot of people will forget about how things are being done before. Because if you see things being done over and over again, it becomes the default norm. There's a time people contested every time Google, you go to Google. If you look at the old generation, even here in the US, there are people that are within the old generation that if I'm asking them, oh, where is the location? How can I identify this location? They're telling me when you come out of your house, you go this way because they are used to that way. You take I-25, you go straight and I'm just like, just give me the address. Let me put it in the map. Because that's the current reality. That's the current reality. So you don't need to be among those people that are more like, oh, this time around, no, you're using AI. No, companies are already using AI. In fact, some industries, they're already mandating it for you to use artificial intelligence. I was talking to a friend and she was telling me, she said, the organization I work in, they mandate it. If you're not using it, you're behind. They are mandating it. They create their own tools and they enforce it for them to be able to use it. So this is the current reality. Even though it means to use it in a way that you're making mistakes, and then over time you keep using it, you will find out that the more you use it, you keep learning, you keep improving, you keep being better. And the advantage in the nearest future is going to be those that already understand these things. So beyond just using artificial intelligence, begin to think, because you cannot separate systems and structures from the place of automation. And that's where many people are making a lot of mistakes. Many people are making a lot of mistakes. What are the lot of mistakes they are doing? They are leveraging on the little portion of artificial intelligence. Do you know how automation is being transformed in times like this? Every tool that people use to handle automation, whether it's MailerLite, whether it's make.com, whether it's different tools, because of the wave of artificial intelligence, the way they have been able to incorporate that in automation is very, very frightening. It's very, very frightening. Earlier this year, I started AI Leverage Academy. When I started AI Leverage Academy, my goal was to start a consulting company here in the US by the end of the year. But then I started to see the demand for certain AI automation systems and even AI voice agents and things like that. So I had to quickly start the consulting firm. I started talking with clients. I started solving their problems. And you know what that made me to realize? That made me to realize that certain things that will feel like we have to wait for a very long time to start is something that we can start now. Because you have all the advantage that you need to have to be able to make progress. A lot of companies in the US now, startups, instead of them hiring receptionists, they hire an AI agent. You call the phone, it is an AI agent that picks the call. And that's one of the services that I render. I've been able to create those AI voice agents for some of these companies. You call it, it's an AI agent that answers the call. The AI agent knows everything about the business. The AI agent can be able to, book appointments. It has access to the calendar of the company. It can be able to book appointments. Why do they need a receptionist? Because that's typically what the receptionist is doing. And then on the back end, it can automate things. It takes the contacts, the name of the person, the contacts of the person, and you can use that for different levels of automations. Companies are already producing all of that. So they're even making things much more easier for people. And that's why the intelligence age is going to be an age to pay attention to what? Understanding. So when you want to start anything, begin to think earlier. How can I set a system? Because I will always tell us that it is not about building. It is not about what you build. It is about how you build. That is what is going to be the differentiator. How do you build? How do you build? So the tragedy of every historical transition is not the people who miss it because they lacked the means. It's not the people that miss it because they lacked the means. Maybe they lacked the capital. Maybe they lacked the technical expertise. No, it is actually the people who miss it because they could not see it why it was happening. And that is where a lot of people are currently. And that's the tragedy of every historical transition. You get to find out that because of the hype, people will end up paying attention to things that are insignificant, things that are not moving the needle, things things that are, these days when anyone talk about artificial intelligence, you see people talking about, videos, creating content. Yes, those things are good. They are leverage as well, but they are just a fraction of what is actually happening. You don't see a lot of people talking about AI automation, but that's the gold mine. You don't see a lot of people talking about agentic artificial intelligence. Recently, not even recently, Anthropic Claude, which is one of the LLMs, has been known to be one of those LLMs that have certain agentic capabilities. It has a whole lot of agentic capabilities. You can be able to do a lot with it. There's what is called cloud skills. You can be able to train it to know some of your skills, and it amplifies it. And it even begins to do it without you being involved in it. They have the Claude Code. You can be able to connect it to VS Code or any other IDEs and use it to build anything you want to build, whether it's an application, whether it's a website, whether it's different things. There is a lot happening in these different spaces. And the tragedy of every historical transition is not the people who miss it because they lack the means, but it's the people that miss it because they could not see it while it is happening. And this age is already happening now. It is already happening now. So we have to be very, very intentional. Find yourself in environments that talks about these things. Join groups on Facebook. Go on YouTube, see what is happening from a global standpoint. Understand that when the big players start paying attention to certain things and start committing trillions of dollars to it, understand that there is a fraction of that money that belongs to you if you have the right understanding, if you're able to position yourself correctly. Because for them to do that, they already know the value that is in it. And don't get me wrong, these are seasons where, even somebody that don't know anything about artificial intelligence, they come out, there is just so much going out there that makes it look as if this is not a big deal. People are just trying to fake it. But in the midst of that trying to fake it, reality is also happening. So don't pay attention to the noise, but know that there is something that is fanning the flame of the noise. So look beyond the noise and focus on that thing that is actually fanning the flame of the noise, because that is the most important thing that you need to start paying attention to. So as we go forward, I just want to tell us, what are the 4 components of the modern solo business? What are the 4 components of the modern solo business? The first component is the command layer. A lot of people will not tell you this. A lot of people will not tell you this. The command layer, very, very important. That's the first component. Now, the command layer is the human mind of the business. And that's why I always say that people that tell you that this time and this season, you don't need to think, they are actually deceiving you. Because you actually need to think. It is possible for 2 people to be exposed to the same tool and they use it differently. What makes that happen is their level of understanding. It is possible for me to interact with ChatGPT and another person is interacting with that same ChatGPT and I'm using it to do unimaginable things and that person cannot even fathom how to do those things. It comes from your depth of understanding. So the command layer is the human mind of the business. This is the part that nobody will replace. This is the part that artificial intelligence will not even replace. There have been a lot of assumptions that artificial intelligence is going to replace, how people, everything about people. But that's not true. The human mind of the business is going to play a very powerful role because it is going to determine how you drive. How you drive in the midst of this advantage that we have that is presenting itself. It is going to decide that, how you drive. And believe you me, how person A drives will be completely different from how person B drives. And what is influencing that is the command layer. So I want you to intentionally build yourself. I've been able to create custom GPTs within ChatGPT that does mind-blowing things for me. Now, why am I able to create that? I'm able to create that because of the depth of experience and, the depth of interactions that I've had. So sometimes I could use, my experience in an aerospace industry, the kind of things that I see. And that mental picture and that mental thinking is going to drive how I am going to create my custom instructions that will drive that GPT. Does that make sense? And that is the command layer. That is it speaking. So whatever you're doing, still invest in improving yourself. Still invest in improving yourself. Still invest in trying to, know the basic things that surround what. We're not saying know everything. We're not saying go in depth and all of that, but at least be able to understand the basics. Be able to understand the things that will drive the conversation. Because what we call artificial intelligence is also feeding on the data of what is already existing. So if we can know a little bit of that data, it helps us to be able to drive it in the right direction. What makes a business great is not the efficiency of its operation, but rather it is what? It is the clarity of its vision. It is the precision of the judgments. It is the depth of its human relationship. And it is the distinctiveness of its creative direction. And these things are things that would hardly be replaced by artificial intelligence. It will hardly be replaced. So the greatest advantage of the modern solopreneur is not that AI does their work. No. The greatest advantage is that artificial intelligence frees them to do the work that only you can do. It frees you to be able to do the work that only you can do. And that is very, very important. Because that is what becomes the true multiplier of every single effort that you commit into your business. So see yourself as the architect. See yourself as the director that is directing different things. See yourself as the one that is bringing the creativity that directs different artificial tools, intelligence tools, into doing what you want it to do. And that's what the command layer is all about. The second component is the intelligence engine. The intelligence engine. The intelligence engine is where we start talking about, your research and your strategy thing. In the past, this is something that's involved a lot. You have to do your research. You have to understand market research. You have to understand competitive advantage. You have to understand, customer insights. You have to understand content strategy. You have to understand a whole lot of things. There's a whole lot of moving pieces, trend identification, audience intelligence, and so on and so forth. And in the past, it was very, very difficult for just a business owner to be able to assess these levels of, different intelligence that they needed to take care of. It was very, very difficult. In places like the US, where businesses are very structured, when businesses are starting, they require the services of a consultant to come and take care of some of these aspects, and they pay them a lot of money. But now, a solopreneur with the right thinking can begin to generate this intelligence reports, or whatever it is being called, in just hours. In just hours. How do you do that? Any tool that you're using, feed it about your business. Let it understand your business. ChatGPT, they have a place where you can do that. In fact, ChatGPT has, and I feel like many people don't take advantage of the project tab within ChatGPT. For every project that you want to do, categorize it into different things. Create a project. If you're starting a business, create a project just specifically for competitive advantage. Create a project just specifically for content. Create a project. I'm not talking about even a custom GPT, because within the project tab in ChatGPT, you can still be able to, give instructions, specific instructions. The reason why people feel like artificial intelligence is not working for them is because they fall prey of the hallucinating power of artificial intelligence. It gives you good answers, but those answers are not the right answers because you have not constrained it properly. And constraining it requires the right level of thinking. But what happens when you constrain it properly? You've created a system. I'm just telling you even the most basic way. I'm not going into the complicated aspect of, or the one that you may think is more advanced, which is even not advanced, the aspect of automation and all those other things. But I'm just telling you simple things that you can do. You create a project for different sections that are important towards what you want to achieve. And that tool, whatever tool you're using, whether it's Google Gemini, whether it's, Claude, whether it's any tool that you're using, and that tool adapts to that specific instruction for that project. And within 5 minutes, it gives you responses that can be able to solve a lot of problems for you. So that's the next component, the intelligence engine. You have to create it. It's like a system. You have to create it within whatever you're building. When we did the first masterclass, which was the free masterclass that I did, that many people attended, that masterclass, I was able to create like a business operating engine that is a custom GPT that creates other custom GPTs. And the mindset is, in structured organizations, there is always what is called the company organogram. So the company organogram is stating the different hierarchies and who reports to who handles specific responsibilities. And we were able to mirror that using a live business to test that. And I got a lot of amazing feedbacks from it. Even when we did the paid masterclass, people were able to create businesses instantly with payment links that people could pay for. And what does that speak to? That speaks to how easy things are. The third component is the operations engine. Every business mainly requires an operation team. Every business usually requires an operation team. The operation team, most times, they are the one that handles, administrative staff. They are the ones that maybe they are more like office managers. They handle one thing or the other: client communication, appointment booking, lead qualification, name it. Think about it. Different things that has to do with operations. But can I shock you? There are tools that handles those things now. There are a lot of tools. System.io. You create the structure once, it does everything for you. That's what an operations manager does. Different tools. I just told us that, building things for clients that has to do with AI receptionists, AI voice agents. These are things that are handled on operational levels before. But now artificial intelligence can do those things. Are we talking about documentation? Are we talking about, client onboarding and these things? These are things that AI can be able to do with just minimal involvement. So begin to put your mind in that direction. How can I be able to create something in this time, in this season, leveraging on the many advantage that I have? The many advantage that I have. And the last component is the production engine. This is where we talk about marketing. This is where we talk about creatives. This is where we talk about content. Recently, previously there have been the competition between Nano Banana Image and ChatGPT. Nano Banana usually beats ChatGPT in time pass. But recently, the kind of images that ChatGPT can be able to design now, the kind of graphics that it can be able to design now is unimaginable. Okay, number 3 is actually the operations engine. Number 3 is the operations engine. And then number 4 is the production engine. So you find out that I've never been somebody that's, because graphics and creatives are things that's, are visually appealing. And many times when you see maybe AI videos and all, it is very, very obvious that it is. But these things are things that are absolutely improving. The kind of graphics that can be done with ChatGPT now can pass for a professional graphics, at least in recent times. So you get to find out that whether it has to do with content, whether it has to do with marketing, whether it has to do with, having a creative thing, these things are things that if you sit down and map out your workflow correctly, you can be able to design what works for you as an individual. And the amount of hours that you will put in to handle these different areas will not be different from the amount of time you would have put in 3 years ago to just handle one thing. That is leverage for the solopreneur. So begin to create systems and structures within these things that you can just use once. You can just use once. If I want to brainstorm on strategy, I know the tool that I've already given the instruction, feed with the knowledge area. I just go there and tell it the kind of strategy, the area that I'm thinking, and it amplifies it in seconds. If I want to think about a copywriting script, I already know where to go to. So these things, if you set it as a system, you build it once, not to talk of when you start dealing with automations, where you set your automation workflow in such a way that from the time of, where whatever content you're doing goes out to the time of you getting payments, you've already set different AI agents, systems to be able to take care of that. To be able to take care of that. In fact, it's just that I've not had the time, but I was working on a conversational AI that I did the first tests. There are still certain things that I'm going to fix in it. But then it's more like you can interact with it on WhatsApp. It understands everything about my business. Some other things I want to add to it is I want it to be able to send, if somebody triggers certain words, it's going to send them an information or a lead magnet in their websites, which will lead to the payment gateway of any product that I have out there, and if anyone wants to get any information about, the free things that we offer, the paid things that we offer, the services that we offer, it can be able to do that. These things are already there. They're already there. And it's going to save you a lot of things. So you need to start thinking in that way. Okay? Now, there are 3 laws of business economies as we wrap up that I want to bring to us. And I want us to start thinking about it. There's just a lot. We may continue with this topic maybe next week, but because there are still certain things that I want to touch, but I don't want to stay beyond an hour, 30 minutes. Okay? But there is just still a lot to talk about. So I'm going to tell us about the 3 laws of business economies that have been rewritten. The first law is the law of speed. It's a law of speed. What gives you advantage over your competitors is speed. What gives you competitive edge is speed. So in time past, if you wanted speed, what that translates is you need to hire more people. So somebody that have 10 staffs will definitely have some levels of speed than somebody that just have 1. Okay? If you want something, a service delivered to you quickly or fast, there is premium service, and you have to pay for premium service. You have to pay for premium service. So speed is one thing that is very, very important when it has to do with business. A client is reaching out to you. If you don't respond very fast, they go to the next client. So people had to pay for speed. They had to hire someone and say, this is your designated role. Don't miss out any lead that we are having, because they understand that if you miss out any lead, the lead goes to the competitors. But can I tell you that today, speed is architectural? You can create AI systems that respond in seconds. The company that I created here in the US, one of the things that made it easy to talk with clients is when they see how fast, they can be able to get response. When they see that an AI receptionist is going to pick the call instantly for any lead, it can pick simultaneous calls. It never sleeps. It never have a bathroom rest or something. It is there 24/7. When they see all of those advantage that is going to give their business speed, and they trust what you're giving, they don't hesitate. So speed is one of the laws of business. Speed is one of the laws of business. Just imagine you have an AI agent that responds to chats 24/7, and somebody sends you a message by 11 p.m. The person that have the AI agents, that customer is going to get response. True or false? It's going to get response because it has been trained to give the response. But the other person that is solely depending on human, the human is already sleeping at that time and will not get response. And just a little response can make a difference. The second law of business is time. It's time. So we talk about speed. The next is time. And the aspect of time is that for individuals to buy back their time previously, it also required money. So you have to delegate to probably employees, and you have to pay them. So for every time you want to reclaim your time, you needed somebody to fit into that role. You needed to trade money for that. But today, automation reclaims hours of people's time without them having to break the bank. That's another level of leverage. So when we have a solopreneur that correctly build certain operational engines, you will get to find out that they reclaim a lot of their time back. And what do they reclaim their time back? Into strategy, into thinking, into creative directions. Because these are the boring parts of business that people do not think about. Investing time to think. Because when you think, that is when you can be able to give the levels of direction to whatever AI agents. That is when you can be able to create more infrastructure. That is when you can be able to do more. And the third, that has always been a concern for those that are using artificial intelligence, is quality. And this is the part that we have to pay attention to. Quality. Now, one of the reasons why people are not confident with AI is because they feel like AI is missing the quality part of things. But over time, that trend is already shifting because people are already seeing the right level of excellence and quality by many artificial intelligence tools. So they are surprised. How can A? So you're going to see somebody, you post an image and somebody is confused. He say, can AI do this? So that shows that what? The quality is increasing and improving. So before, for you to be able to get quality, you have to hire like an expatriate. Then I used to remember when people used to hire people to come and be copywriters, because they would tell you that they know how to speak to the pain points. They know how to use the frameworks that will speak to the pain points of the people. But now, artificial intelligence can do all of that. Can tell it to use certain frameworks, copywriting frameworks that are already existing. And it's going to do that. So it's not about, it's not about, the mindset is not about, trying to replace humans. The mindset is about trying to make humans more effective. Because this is what is going to start happening in the future. If someone that is a solopreneur can be able to generate, let me use a figure in Nigeria, 1 million naira, for instance, that person will say to themselves, if I can be able to find somebody that replicates the kind of thing that I do using artificial intelligence, that means I will earn more. So it's not about the aspect of being a solopreneur, but it is about having the mindset of how you can be able to achieve more with less, so that if you need to bring somebody on board, you are going to be achieving much more with that framework, with that level of thinking. So the 3 laws of business are things that are being currently reshaped by artificial intelligence, which is speed, time, and quality. And all of these things, initially, they all consistently had a common attachment, which is money. For you to achieve speed, you need money. For you to be able to buy back your time, you need to pump in money. You need to delegate. Delegating requires hires. Hires requires more money. Quality, for you to be able to get the right level of quality, you need to bring about certain expatriates. You need to bring about certain professionals. But those things are already changing. With the right system, with the right structure, you can be able to have those things available and accessible. So it is something to pay attention to. And just like I say, the modern solopreneur is not someone who works alone. No. They're actually someone that have built infrastructure so strong that human input becomes addictive, more like an addition, rather than the foundation. And I want us to pay attention to that. The modern day solopreneur is not the person that is doing it, that has the capacity to do it alone, even though that's the definition of what it is. But it is actually that person that have been able to build certain systems and structures in such a way that having a human becomes an addition, not the foundation. And what I mean by not the foundation is that without that existence of having a human, you feel like you are trapped and you cannot make any progress. No, you can actually make a lot of progress by building alone. If you're in a place where you don't have the capital, you can still make progress. There is no excuse. There is no excuse. So as we wrap up, I want you to know that a solopreneur that is without systems, who hires one person, have just hired their operational infrastructure. That one person becomes the foundation. And if they leave, the business collapses. So that's the disadvantage. But if you're that solopreneur that have a system and you're able to hire one person, you have just amplified what is already functioning. So that one person will actually make the system to become much more stronger. But if they leave, the system will continue running until there is a replacement. And this differentiates how much progress that you're going to make in whatever you are doing. All right? So I still have a lot to say, but I want us to go back and I want us to think. And if need be, we may have a continuation from, this particular topic next week, Friday. But I want you to go back and I want you to make up your mind that you cannot be sitting on a gold mine and still be complaining of being broke. It's an error. That means something is wrong somewhere. You cannot have so much opportunity and you're not able to leverage it sufficiently. Yes, it's not going to be like a get rich quick scheme. It's not going to be that way. I'm not telling you that it's going to be that way. But what I'm telling you is the level of efforts that you need to commit to see results, it has drastically reduced. It has drastically reduced. And that is what you need to pay attention to, because you're standing at the threshold. And every economic revolution creates a new class of wealth. And the people that build it, they are not smarter than the people that miss it. They are just simply early. They're just simply early. And being early is a choice that you have to make. Because there is a window for some of those things. And if you're not early enough, you find out that the window has already positioned people correctly, and you're just standing as a spectator. And that wouldn't be the best for you. Okay, so we have actually come to the end of the session for tonight. I believe you got value. If you got value, I want to know how many people that are still present. I want you to put in the chat, I got value. I got value. And I just want to tell us that the AI, this is brought to you by the AI Leverage Academy. And we have different things that we offer. For me, one of my most important goal is to make sure that different individuals, whether you don't have money to pay for some of the paid products that we have or trainings or whatever it is, you are still able to benefit. And that's why we have the leverage circle free of charge to anyone. Okay, so that you can be a part of those conversations, because when you are part of an environment that triggers something in you, you get to find out that you begin to think differently from the way other people are thinking. And just that alone has the capacity to position you differently. It has the capacity to position you differently. So I want us, to go back, make research. There is a lot that you can do. Make research. If you have not started interacting with different LLMs, go ahead and do that. Start interacting with different LLMs, go on ChatGPT, spend 15 minutes, go on Google Gemini. I love to play with those things. I love to play with it, and when it becomes, something that you just love to do, you'll find out that naturally you begin to grow in that direction. And it's because I love this. That's why I'm also investing this time to make sure that I educate people, about the possibilities and what they are capable of doing. All right. So let's have that at the back of our mind. And I would get to connect with us next week, Friday. Hopefully, I'll get to connect with us again. All right. So good night, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Another late night spreadsheet glow, head full of forecasts, eyes running slow. I've been trading my time like it can't run out, quietly winning, quietly in doubt. I've checked every box that they said to check. Still there's this question I can't erase. Something has to shift, more than just the numbers on the screen. I've been climbing ladders that don't lead where I used to dream. I don't need a break, I need a better way to live. I'm not giving up, I'm staying in. But something has to shift. I know the language of targets and charts, can hit every metric and still lose my heart. The world's moving fast, I feel it in waves. Maybe real progress means turning the page. What if the future is ours to redraw? Not just a script we inherit by law. Something has to shift, more than just the numbers on the screen. I've been climbing ladders that don't lead to where I used to dream. I don't need a break, I need a better way to live. I'm not stepping back, I'm leaning in. But something has to shift. Changes in chaos, it's choosing a truer line, saying this matters with how we spend our time. If I want a different world, it has to start in me, in every quiet choice, in how I lead, how I speak. Something has to shift, more than just the numbers on the screen. We've been climbing ladders, let's rebuild what they really mean. We don't need escape, we need a deeper way to give. We're not giving up, we're standing here. And something's gonna shift. Something's gonna shift.